Hello, Soul Shift and Sabbatical. This audio has been very led. I was guided to create it for Sabbatical and for Soul Shift because the focus really applies to both groups. We are doing shamanic work this year. And I'm always hesitant to use that word because people think they know what it is or they own it or, it means one thing. And that's why it's the drumbeat of telling you that nobody owns shamanism and there's no one way. I have 4 different teachers that I'm working with right now, and they all approach it really, really differently. I've got one teacher I'm working with who's from England and does more angelic shamanic work, working more with goddesses. I have another who has more of a Latin American training and South American training and works that way. I have another one who really primarily works with plant teachers and does the wisdom and the training that way. And so they all come at it from these slightly different perspectives, but they're all talking about the same thing. And part of the reason that I try to work with a lot of different teachers from different traditions is I love finding the middle path. There's a commonality, even though they have different names for things, they're all talking about the same thing. And so I find it enriches my path, and hopefully it also enriches your experience of what I'm offering you this year. And so this process of soul retrieval is largely energetic, and it's really about retrieving the parts of you that have been lost during experiences of difficulty and trauma. And the goal isn't really to go back and re-experience the trauma or dig it up or look at it again. I mean, that's sort of the goal, I think, in many ways of talk therapy. It's not that there's anything wrong with that. But from my perspective, sometimes when we just retell the stories over and over and over again, we aren't doing that with the goal of getting better or becoming more integrated or more whole. Sometimes we retell stories over and over again to get attention. Sometimes we retell stories over and over again to try to wait for someone to tell us that we were right and the other person was wrong. Like a lot of times it's ego stuff that causes us to replay a record. And a lot of times the records that we're replaying are pretty broken, like they're stuck on that one song. And so my goal actually this year is to get you beyond the stories. And if you do the work of soul retrieval, if you go back and retrieve, today's focus is keys and codes, but if you do that work, what you're going to find is, I call it taking the stinger out. You're not going to be so stuck in the grooves of the record. I actually have a lot of compassion for people who can't seem to move on from past trauma or past wounding, because it's the only person who's hurt in those circumstances is them. It's the one who is stuck and can't see that really is suffering. And so, but what I've also learned too is you can't really convince those people, and that's not your work anyway. If you find yourself convincing anybody of anything, you're probably moving away from your soul purpose. It's more about you and you doing your work. And what I have found in my practice is when I'm doing my work and I'm getting better and I'm retrieving keys and codes and I'm healing, then people will come to me and say, oh, what are you doing? How do I do that? Versus me telling people this is what you should do or you need to do that. Like I'm not really interested in that. I don't think you are either. So today, what we're going to focus on is I'm going to ask you to identify, and I want you to start thinking about it now. Call your energy into present time, roll your shoulders back, take a nice deep cleansing breath. I want you to bring your attention to a moment in your life where you experienced what we call a contraction in this practice. For a lot of us, what that looks like are moments in our life where we go, and then you don't exhale. Those moments where you something is shocking or something strikes you or hits you or doesn't land right with you or just sort of knocks you off your feet and you go, and again, when you don't exhale, that's when contraction happens, and that's where trauma roots in the body. And then the only way really to fix it is to go back and reattend to that moment and figure out what you shed there, what energy got caught there, and what you had to shed from your own psyche in order to move forward from that experience. Because when we do that, unless we heal it right there in the moment, look at it, work with it, which most people don't. Most people are just like, okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to push that somewhere and keep going. That's where we end up with a lifetime of energy blockages that ultimately result and manifest in the body and in the form of pain and discomfort. And so there's two ways of doing this exercise. One is you can go back to the moment if you can identify one of those moments in your life. Could be past, present, anything. It could be from childhood, could have been from yesterday. There's minor moments like that and there's major moments like that, right? So even like while you're driving, somebody could sort of cut you off and you go, like, that's a minor issue. Still good to look at in the moment. Okay, I'm safe, I'm well, everything's fine, which sort of adjusts the energy back. It's sort of like recalibrating. Or you can choose to access this exercise by focusing on a place in your body where you're experiencing discomfort, and then we can work backward to figure out what the moment was that led to that discomfort. But I would argue that any pain or discomfort in your body ultimately is the result of some kind of event that caused you to contract and not release the contraction, not resolve the contraction in the moment that it happened. By the way, I mean, we all have thousands of these, right? And I mean, my kids have them. I think I'm a great mom, but there's still moments. They're at school, something happens in the playground. You can't protect everybody all the time. And so wounding, trauma is, and I don't even like to use those words because I think they're heavy-handed words. And I think there's so many connotations attached to it. So I try not to say trauma because for people who are stuck, trauma becomes an excuse. I've been traumatized, And so for people who are not stuck, trauma looks like an exaggeration, right? It's like trauma is simply a contraction that's unresolved. Okay. And by the way, energetically, I think the body reacts to those contractions similarly, whether it's major or minor. And so you can look and say, well, that wasn't a big deal, but how do you know to your body it wasn't a big deal? Or you could say, well, I don't think I'm bothered by that anymore. It's like, well, there could be still some residual energy in the body that needs to be moved. Okay, so I want you to focus on either a moment of that that you can remember, or I want you to focus on a place in your body where you're having some discomfort, which is proof that that moment happened and was unresolved. And I would love for you to welcome in your spirit guides who can support you in this work today. I'm calling in spirit guides, angelic beings. Sometimes our ascended masters will come forward to help us with this work. Not always, but sometimes. Higher self invited in. Ancestors who might be connected to this work, who are able to support, also welcome here in the space. Certainly calling in the guardians of the sacred gateways to create a beautiful container for this brief exercise. Just opening a beautiful energetic space for us. Opening a circle of white light to surround us as we do this meditation. And so when we experience a contraction, we shed that experience. We drop an anchor, if you will, and that anchor can be retrieved. And when we go back in that moment and we resolve the contraction, what we're doing is accessing a code for healing that experience, or a key for healing that experience. Some wisdom comes through when you go back to that moment. And again, we're not going back to that moment for a pity party. We're not going back to that moment to re-energize it. We're not going back to that moment to relive it and cry about it. We're going back to that moment to figure out if there's a key or a code there to help us resolve the contraction and heal the discomfort. Does that make sense? And so as you bring your attention to that moment or that place in your body, I want you to breathe into it just a little bit. And I want you to see if you can identify a place. If you can connect the discomfort in your body to a physical location, maybe something happened in a certain place at a certain time. Or if you can remember the moment of the contraction, can you link it to a place in your mind? Places have energy. Places store energy. And a lot of times when we contract in a certain place, we have to go back to that place to retrieve the key or the code. So that's what we're going to do in this meditation. And so I want you to, again, breathe into whatever that experience was or that discomfort is. And I want you to see if you can attach a cord between that emotion or that feeling and a location. It doesn't have to be any place where you are now. It could be half a world away from you, because this is all energetic. When we retrieve, we don't have to physically go and pick anything up. The keys and codes that I'm talking about are energetic. It's not like there's a brass key sitting on the floor. It's going to unlock something physical in you. This is energetic, but I will tell you, this work is real. I promise you. I have had my own experiences where pain has been relieved permanently. Healing has been allowed to unfold on a permanent basis, like really shifting in my own body and in a lot of people I know, really shifting their physical experience of discomfort once they retrieve the keys and the codes. And so once you are able to recall a location, I want you to really crystallize that location in your mind. If it's a room in a home or a building, I want you to really imagine it. Windows, floors, walls, ceiling. If it's could be anywhere. It could have happened on a street somewhere. It could be at a school. It could be at a church. It could be, the possibilities are endless. It could be in the middle of a forest, right? So I want you to allow yourself to go back to that place for just a moment in your mind. If you can physically go back, sometimes that is more powerful, but you don't need to. And sometimes an exercise like this will prompt even a past life memory. So work with that energy too. Maybe there's something from a past life that's taking you back to some place you don't even recognize. Stay there. There might be some really interesting lineage stuff that you're doing without even realizing it. And now as you situate yourself in that space, wherever this contraction occurred, I want you to anchor yourself there for just a moment. I want you to tell yourself, first of all, that you are safe to be in that space right now. You're re-entering that space from a healed place or a healing place. So it's not the same you that's going back there now. It's almost like a parental you or higher self you is going back now. So just remind, like if there's a little boy or little girl that has some anxiety about going back, just remind yourself, you're safe now, you're going back, it's energetic, we're just going back to retrieve and heal. And so spirit guides, I'm going to ask you to help us to discern what wisdom can be gained, can be returned to us. What healing is possible for us in this moment? What was it that you shed or stopped, maybe prevented, blocked during this experience? In other words, what's the connection between the discomfort that you're feeling or the contraction that occurred and what was present or is present now in that space? And so I want you to imagine that in your hands, as you stand in this space, in your hands, you are holding the piece or pieces of your energy now. Just call them back into your hands right this moment from that place that you shed there or that you contracted on there. And I'm going to ask our spirit guides to come through and see what we're holding, heal what's there, and then unlock the wisdom, the insight, the healing. If you want, you can hold what's in your hands, acknowledge it, let the spirit guides transmute it. If there's anything there that's still stuck, we're asking the spirit guides to come through. It's basically a cleansing exercise of whatever happened in that space before we return it energetically to you. And so spirit guides, higher self, ascended beings of light who are here, angels, ancestors of the light, we ask that you help us today to heal the contraction that happened in this place. We also ask that you unlock a code for us today to help us heal that in our bodies if there's still some part of us who's unhealed, still contracted, still wounded from that experience. And what you can actually do is take your hands, if it's a physical discomfort, take your hands now and place them on the area where you're feeling the physical discomfort. You've called that energy back in, you've transmuted anything in it that still needs to be healed, and now return it. Physically give it back to yourself now in the form of healed light. And just gently, with so much compassion for yourself, for whatever the experience is, but also excitement maybe, or at least anticipation of what it will mean to return that energy to you in a whole and healed form. Think of it as, almost missing something until now, and now you won't be missing it anymore because some part of you had to be let go of in that moment in order for the rest of you to move forward. But we end up shedding little tiny pieces of ourselves as we go, and then 20 years later, it's like we almost feel like we're missing a limb, right? So those little tiny traumas add up to feeling like, oof, we're missing some stuff. So this is probably something of a piece for you. And so as you return it to your body, I want you to set the intention, hold the vision that you are making yourself whole again in this moment. Everything you need to heal from that experience is now available to you, and you are safe to heal. You are welcome to heal. The time is now for you to heal. And as you receive the integrity of that experience back to you in healed form, just giving thanks for the comfort that will bring you, physical comfort, emotional comfort, spiritual comfort. Because as you're doing this, you are releasing the attachment. You're releasing the contraction. And all I can tell you is that is one of the most healing things you can do. We talk about cutting cords. I don't think people really understand what that means. When you experience a trauma or a wounding in a place, you establish a cord to that place, and it's not a good cord, right? It's a cord that keeps you sort of bound to the past, really makes it difficult to move forward into the future. And so calling that energy back in, receiving it with gratitude. You can visualize it as water sort of pouring over you. You can visualize it as light, like a beautiful green healing light that you're returning to your body. Healing wherever that contraction occurred, which, by the way, also heals the place. Because again, places hold energy, they hold memories. And so you're also giving a gift to that place, which isn't going to be anchoring or anchored of or anchored by your wounding. Gives the place a new lease on life too. Could even make an old place that isn't comfortable for you comfortable to be in again. This is a really great exercise to do if you've had trauma in your home, because homes tell stories and hold stories and sort of magnify stories, right? And so it's really good. It can make a room in your home feel good to you again. So we give thanks to the energies returning to us now, making us whole, healed, and well. We receive the return of these energies with gratitude. We ask that they're put back in place exactly where they need to go, that the keys and codes to our healing and our wisdom are immediately accessible and translatable to us in this moment, that we have exactly the clarity and perspective that we need to resolve the contraction where it occurred, and that from this moment forward, we allow the possibility that that contraction is resolved and our body no longer needs to hold or store that wounded data, that wounded information. Releasing, allowing, surrendering, trusting in this moment. And then what I like to do is, because you've healed not only yourself in this moment through this exercise, but you've healed the space, I like to imagine leaving an offering now in the space as an exchange to balance the energies. I always imagine leaving a vase with a beautiful flower and fresh water, because that's just life and beauty and energy and light. I like to work with flowers and plants because they're embodied light, physically, literally, right? And so they represent that light and that energy in such a beautiful way. So you can go ahead and leave your flower if you'd like, or your offering. You're not attaching a cord. You're just simply offering something to the space and leaving it there in love and in gratitude for what it has returned to you today. And anytime we leave offerings of life and light, that energy gets returned to us many-fold. That's why it's really just beautiful to go around in your life, just sort of growing plants and giving people flowers and keeping flowers around your home, because it's just a constant flow of light and energy surrounds you and returns itself to you in many different ways. So just notice how you're feeling now. Is there a shift in that place in your body? If it's a contraction that you still feel, do you notice a difference? And if it is possible to go into that space, if you're physically there now, it's fantastic. If not, if you can go back to that space, I'll be really curious to know if you feel a difference, right? And allowing your hands to make contact with your body as you return, restore, renew the energy today. And so we thank our ancestors, spirit guides, higher self, ascended masters, light beings, angels who attended us in this exercise today. We thank you for the retrieval of keys and codes, allowing us to heal, restore, and renew from this particular contraction, reintegrating, becoming whole, heal, and well. We release you with gratitude. Guardians of the gateways, thank you for attending our space, releasing that beautiful circle of white light. We appreciate your presence and release you with gratitude. What's really interesting is, for me, I can always tell the quality of a meditation by the expansiveness of my breath at the end. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but after a good meditation like this one, I really did the work with you, and that the strength of the breath tells you something about the extent to which you experienced and received the energy of the meditation. It's a good gauge for you. Aho. So I hope this was helpful for you, and you're welcome to continue the practice, constantly calling your energy back in, making sure that you're calling in a transmuted form of energy. If there was trauma, you want to make sure it's healed before you reintegrate it. And then as you welcome it back in, just giving thanks. You can do the exercise of leaving a flower, gifting something in exchange for the energy that you're retrieving today. And know that your body keeps track of these. Your body now knows that something has been returned to it today that it was missing, and so you're going to experience probably a greater sense of comfort, maybe better sleep at night, better able to digest your food is another possibility as well. May you be whole, healed, and well always, my brothers and sisters. Amen, aho, and so it is. I'll see you soon.